Let's talk about changing the look of the grid. As you can see, these have their designated width and height, and this is changeable. If you go and take your cursor, float it up here between the A and the B, when you get this icon here, it's kind of a cross with two arrows pointing that way. If I click on this and move it, I can change the width of the cells. I'm going to undo that really quick. And now I'm going to highlight 3 cells and do the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're here or here. Either one, if you drag and make it this size, it changes the width of these 3 columns. Of course, you can do the same with rows. You can change them till they're super skinny. Now, you wouldn't want it to be like that. If you want to hide cells, you might see that anything below row 10 is hidden. If you click on this, right click, go to hide, it hides it. So it's still there, just hidden. Another trick is to do an auto adjust. So let's say I have hi there, you, whatever. So once I've put in these words and I want it to adjust to the width of each word, I can highlight these 3 columns, go to the icon where we were able to slide it back and forth, and do a double click. And look, it's adjusted this one to the word hi, this to there, this to you. The same thing can be done with rows. So if you have a really fat row right here, you want to adjust it, go between the lines, double click. So that's auto adjust. Another thing about selecting cells, if I want to select a whole column, I click on the column A, B, so on. Same with rows. If I want to select everything in the spreadsheet, I can go to this corner here and click. It selected everything in the sheet. Like I said earlier, I made this a miniature Excel sheet. So I'm going to open a new sheet just to show you how massive the sheet actually is. It goes from A all the way to, it starts over with double A, all the way out to XFD. If we count the rows, it goes from 1 all the way down to 1.04 million. So if I put a 1 here, go to the end of the sheet, don't have to pay too much attention to the shortcuts I'm using. But anyway, I've put a 1 in all the columns. And I see there's 16,384 of them. As you can see right here, in this helpful section of the spreadsheet where it tells me certain things, that's the sum, that's the count. If I wanted to change that, I can right click in that area. And I can add or remove things with that option. So let's type 16,384. So 16,384 times 104,8576 will give you the total number of cells in an Excel sheet. It's a massive number. And as you can see, it's 17 billion cells. And you can see why I shrunk it down to that miniature size. Really don't want to overwhelm anybody looking at an insanely huge spreadsheet. But anyway, in a very large spreadsheet, there's a couple ways to get around. Of course, we can use these handles here and click and drag. It will help us go all the way down the rows. And then this slider here goes back and forth between the columns. And by using the clicker wheel, we can also scroll down that way. Another way to get around is using the page up and page down keys. Personal favorite of mine. You'll notice a home and end key. Those don't work unless you hold down control. So control end is the last cell of the spreadsheet. Control home takes you back to A1. So I'm just throwing in some extra keyboard tips in case you get lost in a spreadsheet. Just a real quick lesson on zooming in and out. So we've got the slider down here. You'll see 100%. You can zoom in by dragging this over. right or to the left, we can zoom out very far. Also plus and minus signs here. Of course, if you want to use your clicker wheel, you can do that too if you hold down Control on your keyboard. And then use the clicker wheel to zoom in by scrolling up, zoom out by scrolling down. And we've got the ribbon here. More about the ribbon later. I'm going to get in depth, but there's also a zoom option there. We have a zoom. We can indicate 200%, for example. You can also zoom to selection. So what that's going to do is whatever you have highlighted, it gets closer. Really simple lesson there, not much else to cover. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Another quick and easy lesson is about sheets. So this is a workbook. I call it a spreadsheet. A lot of people call it a spreadsheet. I did a spreadsheet. I saved a spreadsheet. I sent you a spreadsheet. Technically, these are called workbooks. And when you save them as workbooks. Now, the workbook consists of many spreadsheets, one or more. So here we have sheet 1, and let's say it looks like this, like the one I had you download that is kind of small, right? But we wanted to make another one. We wanted to put another spreadsheet out there. All you do is click on this plus sign right down here. And there you go. Notice that this is a full spreadsheet. It does not look like this spreadsheet. So what if we wanted to make a bunch of these spreadsheets? All you do is go down here, right click, and move or copy. And from there, you have the option to create a copy. Move to end simply moves it all the way to the right. So let's try that. It's called it sheet 1 number 2 and moved it right to the end. Now, moving these sheets around is very simple. You just click, hold, and drag it where you want. Let's say I want to put sheet 1 at the very end. Do that too. Let's say we want to name these. I double click, and I can name this mini sheet. We'll call sheet 2 full sheet. And you can't duplicate names, but be careful that you can do this. Let's call this one mini sheet spacebar. It will accept that. So there might be some confusion on names if you don't double check what you're naming it. So if I want to delete this out and hit enter, it won't let me do that. It has to have characters in there. Doesn't matter what characters, you can call it a bunch of periods. So that's how we add, rename, copy, and move sheets. Now it's hard not to look at an Excel spreadsheet and not notice the ribbon. The ribbon runs across the top right here. It has several different tabs. When you click on them, it gives you different options. Basically, all that you can do in Excel basically is up here. There are shortcuts for all this stuff. That's a different course altogether that I teach. But when you're starting out, perfectly acceptable to either use this menu when you right click. It has a lot of the things in the menu like cut, copy, paste, etc. But if specifically looking at the menu, we've got a couple special things here. So we can change the font of something we type, which we can also right click and do. But if we wanted to stick to the ribbon, we can scroll through different fonts, size the fonts differently, step up and step down the size, change the background color, change the font color, make it bold, italics, underlined, and here you have an option to do double underlined. If you want to make a border around a bunch of cells, you can click on the border button. Find different borders. Thick outside border makes it look like that. This is also in the right click menu, by the way. You do all borders and it gives you a grid. For this, I'm going to make these a little bit larger and I want to show you align. So this aligns up and down, top, middle, bottom. This is if you want to tilt it up or down. Can't say I've used that ever. Justify left, middle, right. You can change the indent. There's a lot of things here. Again, there are options in Excel you may never ever use. But typically, a lot of the formatting is going to be in the Home tab. If I go to the Insert tab, I can find things like inserting pictures, shapes. If I want to draw in Excel, I can do this. Draw something crazy. And it's kind of an overlay from the actual cells. I'm going to delete this. Also, you can insert charts, etc., text boxes. I want to have instructions. Do this. That's just an overlay. So that's insert. Page layout has different themes if you want to change the look of Excel. Formulas, we'll get to formulas later. Basically, what I want you to get out of this is that the ribbon has several different tabs. If you're ever missing the ribbon, you can go over here. Your ribbon options are shown up here. This little drop-down menu at the edge asks you if you want to show tabs only, in which case it will hide the ribbon unless you click on one of the tabs. And then if I want to bring back always show ribbon, I have to have clicked on this. So if you don't, option menu goes away. So I have to go back here, go to the option, and go to always show ribbon. There's an option for full screen mode. If you do that, it's going to take up your entire screen, obviously. And how you get out of that is there are 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner that you have to click. So just know that that's there. So how to freeze panes. If you don't know how to freeze or unfreeze panes, this can be quite annoying if working on someone else's spreadsheet. Why? You might have the first column frozen, and then you might not know why when you scroll all the way to the right, data here stays put. So let's say this is important data here. We just want row A as a reference when we're working all the way down here in column Z. If you go to freeze panes, actually I'm going to unclick here to demonstrate. Freeze panes, freeze first column. Basically when I go down here, notice how column A stays put. So that's freeze first column. To unfreeze it, obviously unfreeze panes. And then we have freeze top row, which does the same thing up and down. So we've frozen headers, for example. Say we had headers across the top, we need a reference way down here in row umpteen million. So let's go ahead and unfreeze that and then go on to just simply freeze panes. It might seem unpredictable when you click on that, and then you notice that in this case we have A1 through C3 frozen. Why? That's where our cursor was. I'm going to unfreeze to demonstrate again. If I have my cursor here, for example, it's going to go into the top left-hand corner, make a box, an imaginary box, and say freeze this. So if I'm here, what do you think is going to freeze? That's right, everything in this quadrant right here. Let's say we wanted to freeze columns A, B, and C. We need to go to a spot still visible where we can see all our data. If we go down too far, it's not going to work. Maybe this cell right here, go to freeze panes, and it's made a box, but for all intents and purposes, A, B, and C are frozen. Now it's also frozen up and down to where you can't see, but it just depends on your situation. Let's scroll out a little bit, unfreeze, and say it's all the way down here. Freeze panes. It's going to make that imaginary box. So now we have that for reference. But going up and down, it's going to freeze the horizontal as well. So if you wind up with a spreadsheet and it's annoying because somebody's frozen panes and you unfreeze the panes and don't know how to get it back to their setting, just a little information on how to do that. Talk about hiding and unhiding columns and rows. So if you noticed on the mini Excel sheet, I actually had hidden all these columns to avoid being overwhelmed. We don't need that many when we're just learning Excel. So the spreadsheet looked more or less like this. Let's say that we wanted column G. How do we get column G? I go out here and pull this. It goes from a cross to a cross with two vertical lines. Once I have that, I know I can pull out a hidden column. So when I do that, look which one we get. Column XFD all the way at the end. That's not what we want at all. We want G. So let's put that back where it went and talk about how we can get column G. One thing you may or may not have noticed is up here we have a name box. That's going to call out whatever cell we have highlighted. The only way to unhide column G is to go into, so I can type in here, G1. Hit enter. As you can see here, we can't see the cursor, but we can see a green line here, which indicates that our cursor is highlighted a cell that's off the sheet. And from here, in Home Options, if you go to Format, Hide and Unhide Cells, you can hide or unhide columns. Let's unhide column G. Same thing with row 10. If we go to A10, we just need to have the cursor somewhere in that row. So I'm going to go to Format, Hide and Unhide, Unhide Rows. One thing you might see frequently is if column A is hidden. If that's the case, you can put your cursor up here, and again you have the double vertical lines, and drag out column A. Or like we did before, go to the name box, type A1 or A12, doesn't matter. Let's actually type A1 because we can't even see. I mean, you guys can see down here. Look right in this corner, you'll see a green speck. All right, thanks Excel. If we do A1, we'll see the line. And Format, Hide and Unhide, Unhide Columns. Now, in some cases, people hide the middle of a sheet. So instead of having to pull out all these, which gets kind of tedious, you can simply go to C1. And as we see, the green line is in between the two cells. Go to Format, Hide and Unhide, Unhide Columns. Let's say that we wanted all this to be unhidden. Sorry, if we drag this, here we have the double horizontal lines. You get the very last row in Excel, which you don't want. Nor do you want this. So I'm going to click on this triangle here. Go to Format, Hide and Unhide, Unhide Rows. I took care of that. Format, Hide and Unhide, Unhide Columns. So that's the gist of it. Mainly, some people like to format their spreadsheets with some rows and columns hidden. Just be aware of that and know how you can unhide them. If I hide A and I go out here, if we go to this triangle and click, right click, and then go to unhide, it does nothing, which is kind of inconsistent with Excel, to be honest. So let's click the triangle again with cells hidden in the middle, right click, unhide. In that situation, it works. So just know about this home format button. It's a little bit more powerful than the right click button. So I'm going to do a quick lesson on printing. It's not really what Excel is meant for, but you may have a boss or supervisor who wants to see a printout of your spreadsheet. So I understand it does need to be covered a little bit, especially with how frustrating it can get. So let's start. I took this project planner just to give credit. Go to File and go to the Gantt Project Planner template. Just to give credit to Microsoft for making this. All I did was copy it from that and paste it into a new spreadsheet which has the settings not how it's intended to be. So what I do when I want to print something is instantly go to File, print and look at the print preview. And if I go down here, I can see, it's going to be 15 pages. And it's going to print out all goofy. I'm sure you've had that experience before trying to print out a spreadsheet. So what do we do from the start? We're going to go from top to bottom in the settings. Print active sheets. That sounds good. Printing the selection just prints one cell, whatever you've highlighted. If you highlight a group of cells, it'll print that. But we want to print the active sheet, not the entire workbook. It's just one sheet big. Next, I'm going to skip over this and go to portrait orientation. If I click on that, I have the option to have it up and down or side to side. Imagine you have a sheet of paper and you're turning it 90 degrees. So we get a little bit better. We have 1 of 11. So letter, typically what you find in your printer, that's fine. And margins, we can go to narrow. And look, more of it appears. And once you get down to here, it's the actual kicker. There's no scaling. It's printing it at their actual size. But if I fit sheet on one page, look what I get. Now, the problem with this is it's going to be very tiny. So let's go to page setup and see what other options we have. Here we have the other option to do portrait or landscape. Fit to 1 page wide by 1 page tall. Margins. Notice how these grid lines here show it being printed in the top left-hand corner. Let's center it horizontally and vertically. So that way, you take a look at it, it goes in the middle of the printout. Back to page setup. Just wanted to show you that. I'm going to sheet and I'm going to, let's say I wanted to print grid lines. I said in a video before, you can't print the grid lines. You actually can. The only thing is it's going to print all the grid lines, even the ones that you might not want to show. So in the case of you want part of it to be boxed in, I would use the border button. Okay, so I don't want to say that this is good to print. I don't think it looks very attractive being printed out. Let's back it up one and see what else we can change. Now I'm going to go to View and look at the page breaks. This tells me where the page breaks are. So as we can see, we've indicated we want it on one sheet. Let's say that we can do some economy here with the width of it. Maybe there's no data in this entire spreadsheet. If I hold on to this and drag it, it makes the page smaller. And a good guideline for that, if you go to page layout and look at the scale to fit. Here the scale says 33%. I can tell you right now, that's shrinking it to the point where it's going to be hard to read. So what if we make this a little bit taller? Still doesn't get us what we want. Let's go to View, go back to normal. I'm not necessarily convinced that these periods need to be as wide as they are. So let's go out here and shrink these. So you can see the gray box there, it says width 3.0. Made everything the width of 3. Now let's go back to our print preview. Maybe a little bit better. If we go print sheet on one page and we go to fit all columns on one page, it improves a little bit. But notice this, it gives us 2 sheets. So instead, let's fit all rows on one page. We get back to what we were before. Go to page layout. So we're up to 35%, a little bit better. We had all of these selected, whereas maybe we want to go out only 36 weeks. So going back to our view, page break preview, we can adjust this. And page layout to see, we're up to 50%, a lot better. If you notice column A is blank, we can even take the page preview N1, and the bottom row is blank, maybe take that up 1, and we've increased it by 1%. So let's look at that preview again. Much better than what we had. One thing that might be an obstacle is the font size for everything. Let's go to View and Normal View. I think what's going to be difficult to read is the font size, so I'm going to select everything by that little triangle in the corner, go to Home, and increase the font size. See what that did. File, Print. I want to fit all columns on one page. And there we go. I think it's a little bit easier to read now. So to finally print, you're going to select your printer and you're going to hit print, and there you go.